Blogtalk Radio.
Good morning. This is Dr. Mark Snow with the Head, Neck, and Back Pain Relief Center in West Valley City, Utah. Chiropractic physician, author of the book Sick World, A Story of Modern Day Slavery, which is available in bookstores, also available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com, and also Exlibris.com. Available in hardback, paperback, and ebook format. So today we're going to talk about various health topics. We talk about some nutritional deficiencies. But before we get into that, we're also going to talk about some chiropractic issues and so forth. But before we get into that, here's a word from our sponsor.
Auto accident? Contact the Utah Whiplash Group, certified specialist physicians, attorneys, and massage therapists. UtahWhiplash.com.
Okay. So our call-in number, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to call in at 646-716-5217. 646-716-5217. Or if you have questions for me directly, if you'd like to get some answers to specific questions that you don't want to talk about on the air, then feel free to send me an email, drsnow@utahpainreliefcenter.com. That's DRSNOW at utahpainreliefcenter.com. So we're going to start off with a study out of American Academy of Pediatrics, which was published in May of 2014. Researchers in the United Kingdom have found that nightmares and night terrors are more common in 12-year-olds who were bullied during the preceding 4 years. Dr. Dieter Volk, professor of developmental psychology and individual differences at University of Warwick, writes, "Our findings indicate that being bullied is a significant stress trauma that leads to increased risk of sleep arousal problems, such as nightmares or night terrors." Now, this is something I've talked about in the past, about stress and trauma, both emotional trauma, physical trauma, that can cause a dysregulation in the brainwave patterns. We've talked about brainwave patterns in the past and how there's 4 different wavelengths that the brain produces. And I likened it to a symphony orchestra, where you have a conductor that directs the music so that the horns play at the right time, the strings play at the right time, you get the percussion at the right time, and they're in the right proportion to make the music melodic. Well, the brain functions like that, and you have all these different 4 wavelengths that are being produced throughout the day depending on the situation. They're each represented by a different arousal state depending on the situation. And what we find is that trauma, both physical and emotional trauma and stress, can dysregulate that. It's like taking the conductor out of it. So everything's just everybody's playing at their will. And there's no regulation. And we wind up finding that individuals get stuck in an area of wavelength patterns regardless of the situation. And we see dysregulation of that, and that causes problems like sleep disorders. So this study kind of correlates with that. And we find that by doing neurofeedback therapy, we can again regulate those brain waves and bring that symphony back into a melodic state, and it functions better. So another study here out of the Experimental Biology meeting in San Diego, which was held in April 2014. Research conducted at the University of Missouri has found the women who consume high-protein breakfasts maintain better glucose and insulin control throughout the day than they do on days when they consume lower protein or no protein breakfasts. Based on these findings, the researchers are hopeful that the consumption of protein-rich breakfasts can be beneficial to individuals with prediabetes. So in our society, we tend to have a lot of simple carbohydrates in our diet. And I know there's been a lot of press in the past about carbs and how bad they are. Before that, it was fat and how bad that is. But they're not bad. Carbohydrates are not bad. Simple carbohydrates are bad. So complex carbohydrates are natural, unprocessed whole foods, vegetables, and fruits, and things like that we get long-chain complex carbohydrates from. But we eat too many carbohydrates in our diet, too many simple carbohydrates. And a lot of our breakfasts are made up of simple carbohydrates. Even if we're doing a breakfast drink, it's usually sweetened with fructose, which is a simple carbohydrate. So what this study suggests is that we eat more protein-rich foods for breakfast. So here, now every day, our daily requirements for protein, for women, 46 grams of protein a day, and for men, 56 grams of protein per day. So here are some foods that are pretty high and they're whole foods. They're not only good sources of protein, but they're also good sources of fiber, good sources of long-chain carbohydrates. Quinoa is one of them. That's spelled Quinoa, quinoa, which is a grain, and you cook it kind of like you cook rice. You boil it, and it cooks pretty quick in about 20 minutes. It has a great flavor. It has 8 grams of protein per 1 cup of quinoa. Peanut butter. Peanut butter has 8 grams of protein per 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. Here again, you want to be careful what peanut butter you eat. I recommend you make your own peanut butter with just peanuts and maybe a little bit, like a teaspoon of vegetable oil and a little salt, sea salt. That way you're not getting extra added carbohydrates or sugars that they add in most of the processed peanut butter you get. Now, I'm sure you can find some peanut butters out there that are made without sugar. But peanut butter is 8 grams per tablespoon. Also almonds. Almonds, 6 grams of protein for every 1 ounce. So about a handful of almonds, 6 grams of protein. Pumpkin seeds are 7 grams of protein per ounce. And dates are 3.5 to 4 grams of protein per cup. So a good breakfast, trail mix kind of breakfast that you can have, is take a Ziploc bag, throw a handful of almonds in there, maybe a couple handfuls of almonds, and a couple handfuls of dates, and mix it up, and make that your breakfast. Munch on that on the way to work, maybe while you're at your desk to begin the day. That's a high-protein diet, a high-protein breakfast. It's also got some fiber in there and some long-chain carbohydrates. Again, our call-in number is 646-716-5217 if you have any comments or questions, or you can direct questions to me directly at Dr. Snow at UtahPainReliefCenter.com. That's DRSNOW at UtahPainReliefCenter.com. Here's a study out of the Journal of Manipulative Physiological Therapeutics, November 1994. A controlled clinical trial of 46 children with enuresis, which is bedwetting, received either chiropractic care for 10 weeks or were part of a control group that received no treatment. The results revealed that 25% of the children treated by a doctor of chiropractic experienced a 50% or greater reduction in bedwetting frequency compared with children in the control group. Okay, so that's phenomenal. That's great. 25% of those kids had a 50% reduction. Why not 100% of them? Because not all of their bedwetting was due to what we've talked about in the past, the spinal misalignment or the dysfunction of motion segments in the lumbar spine, causing pressure on those nerves that go to those muscles of evacuation of the bladder. But there's something else causing a problem there. So for those 25%, obviously that was a factor, and correcting that caused a reduction in their bedwetting. Now, another factor there that we've seen also is brainwave dysregulation, and we've talked about this just a few minutes ago. So brainwave dysregulation also can cause a problem with bedwetting. And we find that regulating those brainwaves through neurofeedback therapy can greatly reduce that problem. Now here's a study out of Radiology, April 2014, using resting state functional magnetic resonance imaging. Researchers have found disrupted connections between different brain areas in children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. They suggest that these abnormalities may cause symptoms associated with ADHD. In the future, resting state functional MRI may be a useful tool in providing accurate and early diagnosis of ADHD. Now, functional MRI is something that's used also in conjunction with concussions. I know that I've seen presentations on this where they're able to do a functional MRI and see areas of the brain that are damaged through concussion, and then they can design a treatment program to correct those abnormalities. One treatment that's used for that, again, is neurofeedback therapy to regulate those brain waves. Here's a study out of American Stroke Association, May 2014. It's Stroke Awareness Month, by the way. May is Stroke Awareness Month. In the United States, someone suffers a stroke every 40 seconds. FAST, F-A-S-T, is an easy acronym to remember symptoms of stroke and what to do if you notice these symptoms in an individual. F stands for face drooping. A is for arm weakness. T is for time to call 911 or whatever the emergency service number is in your area. Now, as part of the Stroke Awareness Month, the American Stroke Association has launched a free FAST mobile app for iOS and Android devices that provides information to stroke warning signs, as well as a searchable map to find local hospitals recognized for their stroke care. So I recommend that if you're around people that, well, just to have it, it would be great to have as a tool, because you never know when somebody's going to suffer a stroke. It can happen at all ages. It's more frequent in older people, but it can happen at all ages. Again, the call-in number 646-716-5217. This is Dr. Mark Snow of the Head, Neck, and Back Pain Relief Center in West Valley City, Utah. Chiropractic physician, author of the book Sick World, A Story of Modern Day Slavery, which is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and in local bookstores. So, study out of the American Association for Cancer Research, April 2014. A new report has found that men with low blood levels of vitamin D have a greater risk for aggressive prostate cancer. The authors conclude that vitamin D seems to be important for general wellness. It would be wise to be screened for vitamin D deficiency for the possible prevention of not only prostate cancer, but also for other cancers as well. So what we've discovered is vitamin D really functions much like a hormone in our body. And deficiencies in vitamin D have really skyrocketed, especially with the use of sunscreens and sun blockers. That really reduces the ability of our body to make vitamin D, which we do. Now, the FDA's recommended daily allowance of vitamin D is way, way, way too low. I recommend 5,000 to 10,000 IU per day of vitamin D for adults. And so it's really important that we supplement that vitamin D. Now, in conjunction with that, another study out of Rheumatology, April 2014. If you're male and are experiencing chronic widespread pain, then you may have low levels of vitamin D. A recent study showed that men with vitamin D deficiency were more than twice as likely to experience chronic widespread pain than men with normal vitamin D levels. Further research is needed to determine whether treating vitamin D levels could prevent chronic pain from developing. Again, this is Dr. Mark Snow with the Head, Neck, and Back Pain Relief Center of West Valley in West Valley City, Utah. Glad to have you with us today. To close out the show today, we have just a few minutes. If you have any questions that, after the show's over, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to email me at drsnow@utahpainreliefcenter.com. That's DRSNOW@utahpainreliefcenter.com. To close out the program, a quote from Walt Disney. The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Again, this is Dr. Mark Snow. Thank you for joining me today.